have starting at 9:30. So don't lose it between now and then. As I frequently tell my students at school, you're going to need it later in the period. Don't lose it now. Good morning, one and all. A number of administrative matters were gathered first and foremost to organize as a committee. And I also have been given a sample administrative announcement for committee chairs from the clerk. The meeting will come to order. Not this clerk, the Uber clerk. Yes. I've already said good morning. All right, well, welcome to the General Assembly. Paul, I think, has become pseudo-lawyer. He obviously is getting paid by the word in this group. But anyway, long and the short. For those who are new to the committee process, and especially to the committee process of health, welfare, and institutions, first of all, we will meet 8:30 Tuesday and Thursday mornings. Everything is open to the public. When a bill comes up that has not been heard in subcommittee, we will always elicit and make available public comment on the matter before the committee takes action. If a bill is referred to subcommittee, that will be the primary venue for the public to come and participate in the process, because that is the purpose of our subcommittees, to vet the matter at that level and try and resolve any controversy surrounding the measure. When bills have been heard in subcommittee, we will take them as a report from the subcommittee chair with recommendation from the subcommittee, and will not take additional public comment unless there are individuals who for some reason were unable to appear at subcommittee, or there is new information that they can share that was not available for the subcommittee. So there will still be a time for public input, but we're not going to have a whole rehearing of the matter once it's been heard at subcommittee. Additionally, the rules of the House and the standard process of operation operates under the premise that if a matter before us has not received a sufficient number of subcommittee members in support of the matter to have it be a majority of the subcommittee, then it is very unlikely that it would be any more successful at the full committee level. So procedurally, bills that fail at subcommittee level will not be on the docket of the full committee unless I, as the chair, in consultation with the subcommittee chair, have found out that circumstances have changed, conflicting issues have been addressed, and I, as the chair, have the right to pull a matter that was left on the docket of the subcommittee to the full committee. Procedurally, the other process would be if a majority of the full committee wants a matter discharged from the subcommittee, that would mean that for whatever reason things have changed, and it would presume that there would be a majority of the full committee that would act favorably on the underlying matter. They can act to bring it forward to the full committee. Technically, subcommittees do not kill bills. They do not have that power. But in order to expedite the legislative process, contrary to when I first came here, and every bill that was heard at subcommittee was then heard at full committee, even though no one in subcommittee may have liked the bill except the patron themselves. It did utilize a considerable amount of committee and staff time to rehear a matter that wasn't going anywhere in the first place. So that's primarily the justification behind it. But all that being said, understand everything we do as a body politic is open to public observation. And as I noted over here to my right, probably public videoing. I've solicited a fashion consultant this year with that thought in mind, like that's going to do much good. But anyway, lipstick on a pig, I'm just saying. But anyway, the pig does look a little better. Okay. So unless members of the committee feel I have omitted something procedurally of the general process of how we operate. One other thing for folks, as I utilize parliamentary law, I frequently do not solicit a motion per se on a matter, but I do rather exercise the parliamentary tool called general consensus. And I say if a matter brought to us, there's general consensus, i.e. any member opposing, we would then take it to a vote. But if there are no members that voice opposition to the matter going forward, we don't take a voice vote of all in favor, aye, all no, it just moves along a little bit quicker. So, we have a little different procedure for members before us this year. First of all, I have everybody's mugshot up here on my screen, not just your name, unlike past years. Some of you, I'm just going to say, Photoshop has been your friend. But you don't really look this good. The request to speak is still active, and actually a little more active, I would say, this year. If you care to raise a question or want to speak, use your RTS on your little bitty screen here. We did away with the little button thing here. That will come up on my screen, and it will be in the order of which you'll push your buttons, and then I can acknowledge appropriately. Otherwise, the only other change, voting will now be done, as you see, on the little smart panel in front of you, and you can, to explain, if you would, Becky, the cancel compared to just changing. Don't touch your cancel button, I think is the no, but you.
Thank you. I'm still learning this system also.
Mike.
It's on. It's on. Trust me. I just project that. System's on.
Buttons on the mic.
Ah,
Hey, Scott, maybe you could
the
explain
system's
what
on.
the cancel button means.
There we are.
I hope that I talked loudly enough that everybody said or heard everything I said previously with a, okay, good, thank you. Scott, please, elaborate on the newness of this system for members.
Mr. Chairman, the cancel button is simply if you want to erase your vote and be recorded as not voting.
Okay.
You can toggle back and forth between yes, no, and abstain, but the cancel button gives you the ability, if you,
So the ABS would be abstention. If you don't care to be recorded at all, i.e. you're not present, or two, you're present, the lights are on but nobody's home, you may cancel.
or you just hit the wrong machine. You accidentally voted for your neighbor and just need to cancel out their vote because they're not here.
Please stop.
So Scott, if you want to not vote and be recorded as not voting, you have to hit cancel.
If you had
If you've already-
previously hit a button, yes.
So not voting would just be don't push any buttons.
That's correct.
Now, how do you cancel a request to speak request?
Just press your button a second time and
The RTS button,
Yes.
not the cancel button.
that's what.
Thank you.
All right, Becky.
I would just like to make one comment. These machines are very sensitive. They're not like the old voting boxes that you could press multiple times. Press your vote button once, lightly, and that should record the vote. But until you get acclimated to the system, you may want to glance up onto the board and make sure your vote is recorded. Thank you.
And further on that, unlike the Senate, the House does not allow proxy votes. However, we do allow, if a member is in the room and not seated at the dais, and they can communicate to one of their peers, where it becomes obvious how that member wanted to vote, and someone else on the dais may push their yay, nay, or abstention button for them, because they're I had that, I'll share that sometime also with you. Yes, I had it my first year. So, any questions on the system or the process? Delegate Sickles, I see you, I will acknowledge you. Go
Thank you,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman. I apologize for the picture that you're dealing with now. I think that was from an earlier era.
That really is a bad.
That is a bad picture. Okay, I gotta work on that. I just wanted to make a request or plea to you that on some issues that this committee hears, people come from around the state, want to talk to because it has had a vote in subcommittee, I think that they need to speak to a larger group and speak to the General Assembly, and I hope that you'll accommodate that. You have been good about that. I just wanted to make that request for the record.
One, I thought I already said that. Two, I'm glad you asked that question before I make subcommittee announcements. Let me get my pen out. But yes, that has always been the practice in the past, and I will continue. We have a new member of the committee, and Delegate Hayes, welcome. We're not going to do introductions all around the House because we kind of do that on the year we organize, but Delegate Hayes, we would ask that you would introduce yourself to the rest of the committee and the audience. Tell us a little bit about yourself. This is the nearest thing to an open mic you're ever going to get on my committee. So please, tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the members of the committee and all in attendance. Just happy to be here today. As you mentioned, my name is Delegate Cliff Hayes, representing the 77th House District, which includes Chesapeake and Suffolk. 80% of my district is in Chesapeake, city of Chesapeake, and 20% in the city of Suffolk. Former member of Chesapeake City Council, 2 terms for 8 years there, and just here, excited and ready to get to work.
And we're very glad to have you, Delegate Hayes, and I will just as a sidebar, your predecessor had quite the reputation within the committee of questions. While you have big shoes to fill, it's okay if you don't fill them out to the toes in that regard. His questions were always sincere, if not always thoughtful. But I look forward to working with your predecessor in his new capacity. He's a good man. Otherwise, for organizational purposes, I will be announcing the individual names, but the subcommittee structure of last year will continue this year. Subcommittee 1 will be chaired by Delegate O'Bannon, along with members Peace, Dickey Bell, Garrett, Edmonds, Head, Farrell, Sickles, James, Price, and Delegate Hayes. Subcommittee 1 will be meeting Tuesdays upon adjournment of the full committee, and at such other time as Delegate O'Bannon may want to regularly put on this docket or that he may wish to call as a meeting. As of now, Subcommittee 1 members, put on your calendar Mondays, 5 o'clock at 5 West on an as-needed basis will be your otherwise planned meeting time. Subcommittee 2, be chaired by Rob Bell, and also we'll have delegates Pogge, Stolle, Robinson, Helsel, Yost, Hodges, Hope, Levine, and Ard. Or Air. Air, thank you, sorry about that. I owe you one, I misspoke. But when you misspeak, you hear it twice. So yes. They will meet on Thursdays after full committee, and then on the call of the chair. Historically, Delegate Bell hates having alternative meetings, so he tends to get the job done on Thursdays after full committee. Subcommittee 3 will be chaired by Dickey Bell, and other subcommittee members are myself, Delegate O'Bannon, Delegate Garrett, and Delegate James. And we will meet as needed, not every Wednesday, because the docket for Sub 3 will typically be lighter, but we will meet as needed on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock on 4 West. So Subcommittee 3 members, please put that on your calendar. So far as which committee or subcommittee gets which measure, I frankly try and disperse them fairly equally, not necessarily topically. However, I do recognize certain expertise of subcommittee members, and that does sometimes have me send certain matters to certain subcommittees because I know of the background expertise of certain members, i.e. my resident lawyer to my left tends to get things that have a little more thorny legal implications. So, and he gets no extra pay for it, and I appreciate that. Can anybody think of anything I have left out in general organization? If not, then here is our game plan going forward. I will be having a docket meeting this afternoon. Subcommittee chairs and members plan to be working in subcommittee next Tuesday, Thursday respectively, because you will be getting bills. Full committee be here at 8:30 Tuesday. We will have some bills on full committee docket Tuesday morning, and I'm going to tell you right now, one of those will be an issue we've heard several times over the years in this committee as it relates to fingerprint background checks for child daycare providers. I will be carrying that bill. We will hear it Tuesday. I'm going to be making one recommended amendment right out of the chute, which the department is aware of. But the long and the short of that matter, as you recall, for those who were here before, we are under the gun as it relates to federal requirements. And if Virginia does not change its law to conform with the federal requirements at this juncture, we stand to lose quite a few $1 million accruing to the Commonwealth for that and other health care needs. So what you're going to be seeing Tuesday is a bill that will put us in line with the federal requirements. It will have an emergency clause so that we can quickly get it over to the Senate and well before crossover, hopefully have the governor sign it so the department can go forward with the regulations and changes they're going to have to implement to be in place by, I believe, October 1 is the drop dead. Because if we waited until July 1, there would not be time sufficient for them to do what they've got to do administratively. So stay tuned, sports fans, but because that is a matter we've heard before, and there's been some strong feelings on both sides, I wanted to give folks a heads up today of what's coming Tuesday, and we're not trying to rocket docket, fast track it through to sneak anything by on folks, which is also why that I want to mention it today. And that being said, on Tuesday, we will have open public discussion on the matter as needed. I will tell you, I've already been contacted, there is still opposition. We'll be hearing that on Tuesday, and the committee can act accordingly. Questions on kind of where we're proceeding starting next week? Being a short session for those new to the process, we tend to hit the ground at a little higher pace than we do in the long session. This committee in particular, I think, tries to do that. My intention is we should not need to have any extra meetings. In some years in the past, we have had to call them if they clear the docket in a timely manner. Past couple of years, actually, we've been able to finish before all of our scheduled meeting slots. So I try and give people a day off, and I welcome any invitations to breakfast on said day that members might wish to make to me. So, are there any questions? But this morning, we have no business before us other than to organize. I will ask, and I'm going to gavel us out of committee here in just a moment, because I would ask members, though, do not leave the dais. Have to, did you ask? Okay. Because at 9:30, the Senate Counterpart Committee will be joining us. They will be taking the seats in front, except the chairman of the Senate Committee will be joining me here at the center of the dais. And we're going to be hearing a presentation from the Secretary and others that he has to make us all aware of what's already going on dealing with the opioid crisis and related issues to that. We know we're going to be seeing a number of bills on that matter before this committee, and it was my intention, before we actually start seeing the bills, let's know what's already happening, lest we might enact some legislation that would actually get in the way of what's already going on, so that whatever we do this session, we do it as an adjunct to and assistance to addressing this very serious problem within the Commonwealth. So, if there are no questions, then the committee will rise, and we'll see you here at 9:30 as we gavel back in for a joint committee meeting, and then everybody be here at 8:30. Yes. Are there other announcements that need to come forward? Yes, sir, Dr. Stout.
Mr. Chairman, we can discuss this maybe separately. There was discussed about electronic sign up for members rather than.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Piece of paper.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yes, we will, and this is more for when we get patrons here, but for everybody's knowledge, and I'll share it again on Tuesday, that there's a different process within the committee structure system this year where we are so familiar with ourselves, our aides coming and doing the whole sign-up sheet. And then I get past the piece of paper, go. There will be an electronic sign-up, and that is the only type of sign-up we will be utilizing in committee. However, if a member presents a patron bill is not on the electronic sign up. I will be adding them to the bottom as I see them come in. If a member whose patron is not present, when their bill comes up, we keep rolling. And go from there. Right, members of the committee's legislation typically will not come until we have heard all other patrons, with the exception, in the event we might have 2 or 3 bills on a common topic, we may adjust that queue and pull from members so that we address things topically as best we can while we're on that matter. It's an excellent point. Thank you, Don. I'll take all the help I can get, and I need more than y'all get, but that's appreciated. All right. But speaking, before we do rise, also, I've been derelict. We have some new staff folks. So I will also, before we do rise, since we got another 5 minutes, staff, would you introduce yourselves? All of us.
Good morning, I'm Sarah Stanton. I'll be your staff attorney for the committee and also for subcommittees number 1 and 3.
David May, also an attorney with legislative services, and I'll be staffing full committee and subcommittee 2.
Claude Harrison, I'm the assistant clerk for the committee.
Mr. Harris, the young man to your left, please.
Owen King, I'm with Paige.
I'm sorry, Owen, they were being rude and clapping while you were talking.
I'm from Fredericksburg, Virginia.
The city itself?
Sir.
Whoa. It's kind of like Richmond. People say they're from Richmond, so they're in Richmond, live in Rico, Chesterfield, somewhere around here. And Becky.
Becky Clark.
We have an excellent staff. We look forward to all the help that you can give us as well. And with that, the committee will rise and we'll reconvene here in about 5